Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Electric Bike Journal. As you can see, we have quite a few electric cargo bikes here, and we're gonna be putting them to the test to find out really which one we like the most and which one could be right for you. So stay tuned, let's learn all about them. Now, before we introduce all of the bikes in the roundup, there are a few things that I want to share with you before we get diving into the meat of this. Most importantly, there is individual reviews on each one of these bikes here on the channel. We also have write-ups on the website. So if you want to learn more about any one of these bikes, all the specs, hear more of our thoughts on either one of these bikes, be sure to check out those videos or read those reviews. Put a lot of time and effort into really going in deep on the bikes by themselves to free up room here in this video, so we didn't have to go for 2-3 hours at a time, save you some time and let you watch the ones that you want to learn more about. Secondly, for this roundup, we did opt to go with long-tail electric cargo bikes. There are a lot of different forms of cargo bikes. We are aware of that, but to help us narrow it down and kind of cast a more specific net, we did choose to go with long-tail electric cargo bikes for this roundup. Within that category specification of just long-tail electric cargo bikes for this roundup, we did want to cast a wide net for long-tails. So pricing is going to be all over the place. Load capacities are going to prove to be all over the place as well. And there are different features and intricacies of each bike that is going to show that we kind of open up the door. We wanted to show a broader range of what exists out there in the long-tail electric cargo bike category. Hub drives, mid drives, 20-inch wheels, fat tires, skinny tires, suspension, no suspension, one kid, two kids. There's a lot of options out there. So we wanted to kind of pick around a little bit to bring stuff on. So without further ado, let's meet the bikes. First up, we have the Benno RemiDemi XL. This comes in at $4,599. It weighs about 65 pounds and has a load capacity of 355 pounds. And there's room for 2 kids, yep, maxi seats on the back rack. Next up is the Cannondale Cargowagen. This comes in at $4,300, weighs about 79 pounds, and has a load capacity of about 440 pounds. There's also room for 2 kids, yep, maxi seats on the back as well. Next up, we have the Globe Haul LT, coming in at $3,500. It weighs about 88 pounds and has a load capacity of about 441 pounds. This also has room for 2 out back. Next up, we have the Momentum Cito E+. This comes in at about $3,200, weighs 86 pounds, and has a load capacity of 408 pounds. The Cito E, however, only has room for 1 kid's carrier. Lastly in our group is the Xtracycle RFA, coming in at about $5,499. It weighs about 60 pounds and has a load capacity of about 470 pounds. There is room for 2 kids carrier seats in the back on the RFA. Of course, we do know there are plenty more out there, so if there's any that aren't on this test and you'd like us to talk about, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you're looking for, and we'd love to do our best to try to bring that on for a future review. For now, let's start talking about the bikes. We're going to focus on what we like about each one of them. Things about performance, their quality, their load capacity, range, power, all those details as we get into discussing which one we like most and what we think might be the best one for you. What excites us most about the Benno RemiDemi XL is the Benno ecosystem of accessories. There are a lot of different ways that you can kit out the RemiDemi XL, as well as any other Benno bike, and there is a lot of options that you have there available to you. Something that's really neat within that is that they have a great way of representing that on their website, of showing different volumes and different ways to set up your bike. 1 kid, 2 kids, a pet and a kit, whatever it is. They have a lot of different ways of showing that, and I talked about that in the review. As far as power and range goes, the Bosch drive unit is extremely smooth, quiet, powerful, and most importantly, dependable. Bosch does a really great job with their drive units. The RemiDemi XL is offered in either a Class 3 or a Class 1 offering. So there are two different ways to go on that with a price break on the Class 1. Of all the bikes on test, the Class 1 version of the RemiDemi XL that we've had was the most efficient bike in all of our testing. It had the most amount of battery left at the end of the same simulated loops. And this really is something worth paying attention to if you're someone that has a high mileage day or you're trying to extend the charge intervals in your week. Having a battery and a drive system that really lasts a long time is beneficial. As far as comfort goes, the RemiDemi XL is debatably one of the most comfortable bikes on test. Myself personally, I felt a little bit too large for it, but a lot of our other testers, well, actually most of our other testers found it to be a really great size and extremely comfortable, really comfortable saddle. They just felt very comfortable on it while riding it, whereas some of the other bikes maybe didn't leave them feeling the same way. For myself, I considered the aluminum frame design, the big tubing, retro kind of look with that steel fork, and truly those fat tires are really what make this bike feel very comfortable. It's really just the harsher lips on the pavement, the larger potholes, something that you can't avoid, that is aggressive, that you would probably feel in a car as well. Those things can be a little bit jarring, but you know, most bikes, you're going to be jarred a little bit while hitting something aggressive if it's not full suspension bike. As far as handling goes, it is very easy to maneuver and get around. Definitely felt in the garage like it was the easiest to twist around, move around, equally while riding. Tight little turns on bike paths and little sidewalk areas where you had to transition over, making those quick, tight radius turns at lower speed were very easy. I didn't feel like I was going to tip over or hit my knees on the handlebars or anything like that. As you get loaded up on the Benno RemiDemi, I think it has a great balance point. It holds the weight very well. It's not too high, it's not too low in the back. Not that many people are upset about weight being too low. A low center of gravity is good, but it's not too high, although it is 26.5 inches or so for that rear deck height to the ground, and that's off the center stand. Again, getting back to the ecosystem of accessories, you don't have to get a full rail. You can get a 3/4 rail or a different modular system that makes it easier for kids to get in and out of if that's likely how you're using that bike the most. Performance while riding loaded up, very minimal effect on the overall performance. The speed, average speed, dropped about a mile per hour, very unnoticeable, and that was for the entire test course, as well as just the battery range and the amount of battery left was within a few percent difference. So there was very minimal impact on putting, I think it was 70 pounds extra onto these bikes while doing the test loop. Jumping into the Cannondale Cargowagen Neo, this is what we think is the nicest package of all of the bikes on test. It's very sleek, smooth, and really speaks for itself just in looks alone as to how nice of a bike this is. Talking about how sleek and smooth this bike is, that it does have a front suspension fork, which definitely adds to the comfort of this bike. And it's the only bike on test that has a suspension seat post. This, after riding the Cargowagen Neo, is something that I find should almost be essential and required on every cargo bike. It dramatically made this bike feel so smooth and comfortable. The bike itself is very compliant. It rolls very smoothly across the ground on rough roads. It tracks very well, but the suspension seat post just made it that much smoother, and I think is something that we would like to see on more bikes. Again, we see a Bosch drive system that we know is very efficient, very powerful, high quality drive unit, a lot of support from the brands, whether that be Cannondale or Bosch directly, to get any service done if something is needed to be serviced. But it's, you know, powerful, smooth, quiet, durable, dependable. And dependable, I think, is something that really sticks out on the Cannondale. It's a quality component spec across the board, and to see the drive unit also be a quality drive unit. When you're hauling kids around, the last thing you want is just for some random fluke or glitch that may happen with a different brand, that Bosch, you don't have to be as worried about, and it being able to work effectively and how it should every time you go for a ride. What else is nice about the cargo wagon is that although it might go through the power a little bit faster in full turbo mode as a class 3 bike, it is dual battery compatible, so you can optimize your range and run a secondary battery on there. And we know that adding that few extra pounds for a second battery really isn't going to make much of an impact on the bike's performance. You're not going to feel it at all, and it really tucks in nicely into that frame. Again, super sleek. It's fully shielded, covered guard from the down tube across the drive unit, out back over the chain guard. Everything's very smooth and very modern looking on the Cargowagen Neo. As far as loaded performance goes, I have noticed nearly nothing in regards to riding this bike with weight. Our test loop with the 70 pounds, this was the one that felt as though the weight wasn't there. Maybe the most, if not the second most, of all the bikes on test. It did the full courses and test loops so easily, and the numbers were so almost neck and neck between loaded and unloaded on those same loops that it was hard to tell if the impact was myself or just the climate and the wind or anything like that that might have come up during that secondary lap. As far as general handling goes, this is the smoothest handling cargo bike that we've brought on test. It is very nimble and can really course correct very quickly. And when loaded up, pushing it and having like a full-size person back there, the first couple pedal strokes, you definitely feel that weight, but after that, it is back to just feeling normal, and you could ride it really anywhere, tight turns, slow speeds, fast speeds, and not really feel that weight, which is something that you shouldn't feel on any bike, but it really stood out on the Cargowagen. Additionally, unloaded just by yourself, maybe you have to go pick up kids or you're running to a grocery run and you just want to get there quickly. This bike goes very fast and handles very well at speed, whether you're charging downhill into some corners or just racing around town and in and out of stop signs and stoplights. It reacts very well. It's really responsive. You have quality components across the board, and everything just works together very well to offer a very comfortable riding experience. Next up is the Globe Haul LT. This is right on par with the Cannondale. There are some differences in performance and differences in presentation and quality, but it is a bike that leaves you feeling very confident. It's very powerful, it's very fast, and it definitely encourages you to want to ride it as opposed to driving a car. Which is the end-all goal with any of these bikes, right? Is to replace a vehicle and be able to transition to riding a bike more. The different spin and looks of the Globe Haul definitely land in more of a utility design. It looks very utility inspired and driven. A lot of the accessories focus on more of cargo rather than the passengers. There are some unique features with the passengers. The passenger pad itself is very thick and comfortable. It's the thickest passenger pad we've seen on any cargo bike. Beyond that, the rail system is adjustable in height, so you can change how high that rail sits depending on your passengers, and that rear deck length is really long, so fitting 2 kids back there is really easy. You're not having to cram everyone together, even yourself with passengers. There's plenty of space on this bike. What really steps the Globe Haul LT up for us and comparing it to the rest of the bike is the general outfitting of mounting options and places to mount things. There are so many locations across this bike to put an accessory and room for you to create your own accessories that can adapt onto this system very well. So it does have MIT compatible plates and mounts, all over the place, whether that be the front rack or the rear rack. It has different pannier mounts and pannier accessories. The Cool Caves, which is hard plastic totes that I've been using. There are just so many different ways to retrofit this bike and set it up for different types of use. That being said, changing out floorboards, changing out some of the accessories might be a little bit more time consuming than some of the other accessories, but for the most part, they are very much so quick release, fast accessories to get through. As far as power goes on the Haul LT, it has a lot of power. It wants to go fast. It's the first bike on test that has a throttle option. Depending on who you are, perhaps you may not be interested in throttles, or maybe you exclusively only look at electric bikes with throttles. Globe's done a great job at making this throttle system be, I think, kind of the peak of what a throttle should be on a bike. Instant action. When you are at a dead stop, you can apply that throttle to get going. That extra support is really nice to have, especially when you are loaded up. If you're on an incline and you can't quite get your foot up onto a pedal to get rolling again, being able to have a throttle there to get rolling is very convenient and very helpful, I think, for most of us. As far as range goes, it's a very powerful bike. I found it to maybe not be as efficient as all of the other bikes on test. It also weighs significantly more than a lot of the other bikes, especially when you kit it up with all of the accessories. This is not an aerodynamic speed machine. This is more of a stout planted, stable, heavy bike for good reasons. The way it's designed, the way that low center of gravity, the weight bias, you could bring a lot of gear with you. I think, 441 pounds max load capacity. There's a lot you could bring with this bike. You could put a lot of things on it, and it is designed for that use. So it only gets better when it's lighter or empty, but when you're loaded up, cruising around town, taking turns fast, I know that for myself. The little Cool Cave baskets that are up front, definitely clip those a few times leaning into corners, which I think bodes well for how well this bike rides and encourages you to want to ride it playfully and sporty, effectively sporty, and have fun while riding it. As a heavy, big cargo bike, it really does make you smile. Next up on our list is the Momentum Cito E Plus. This definitely has changed our perspective of what a cargo bike should be, not for the sake of how well it carries cargo and it has done something crazy revolutionary. I think that Momentum has just done something so intuitively intelligent by integrating vehicular features into this bike. It's definitely the commuter's cargo bike. It doesn't have the full long rear end that some of these other bikes have. It still has a very high load capacity, has an crazy impressive range. And if you watch the independent review on this, you can see how far this bike can go on the range estimations. But what they've done is they've integrated a very burly headlight, so you get a lot of front light and a daytime running light. Out back, we have a running light and a brake light and turn signals integrated into this bike. It just comes with it. And that doesn't stop there. And then it has a horn that is built into this bike. They've just done a really good job at bringing those vehicular features over to a bicycle and making them just a standard. This is just something that comes with. It's not an extra accessory. Cargo bikes are ridden in the neighborhoods around town with cars around, and I think that the time has starting to shift and come to an end where we don't see bikes required to have turn signals and brake lights built into them. So it's just nice to see the brands out there already doing it and going for it, just to make them as best as they can be without having to have some crazy price point on there. The Cito E Plus is wildly smooth and fast. There's a lot of power with that sync drive system. It's very efficient. I think that riding in the full boost turbo mode that it offers, it's too easy to go so fast. So kicking down into different modes and feeling some of the resistance to remind yourself that you're riding a bike is really, I think, where they're able to capitalize on the amount of power this bike has and the amount of range that it's able to offer. It kind of leaves you always feeling like the bike is holding out on you just a little bit. Like, it always has more power than you expect. So when you are using the throttle that it does have, you just always feel like there's just more in the bike and it's just ready to go. Unfortunately, it's limited to 20 miles per hour, but it is very smooth around town. The throttle does work differently than it does on the Globe. If you pull that throttle from a stop, it will not activate and engage anything. You have to pedal a little bit to cause that throttle to start working. So there are ways to get around it and get it to work a little bit faster as far as changing gears and having a tighter pedaling stroke. But despite it not working like the Globe's throttle, it has a lot of power, and I think for a bike that is so efficient with how much battery it has, the fact that it has a dual battery option, I could definitely see myself going weeks without having to recharge. As far as general handling goes and carrying that load with you, it does have a high payload capacity. It doesn't quite have the space for 2 kids in the back. It is a little bit shorter. But when that weight is on the back, it does feel a little bit faster side to side. But that's only for the first few pedal strokes, maybe the first turn. You very quickly get used to where that weight's at, and after a while, it goes away. And it has, again, all of the power in the world to support that extra weight and load on there, so it doesn't take it out of you. Well, last but not least is the Xtracycle RFA. This is the cyclist's cargo bike. And what I mean by that is if you are no stranger to cycling over the years, you have probably felt how comfortable and smooth a steel framed bike is. Steel road bikes are very reputable for how comfortable and smooth they are. And Xtracycle has done a great job at creating steel frame cargo bikes that are so smooth and so comfortable without sacrificing strength. This is the lightest cargo bike on test, but it does not sacrifice the amount of load capacity that this bike has. This is the only Shimano drive unit that we see on the bikes on test. I like the Shimano drive unit. I think this new generation of Shimano is very competitive with Bosch. And really offers a lot of benefits. I do wish that this system had the app connectivity and different features that were a little bit more techy. But again, the cyclist approach to a cargo bike. Xtracycle has been doing cargo bikes for a long time, and by updating their collection of bikes to be electric bikes, they're only expanding the door to offer that to so many more people with their experience and knowledge in the cargo bike game. The RFA for myself encapsulates what a cargo bike should be in its truest form. It is a smooth, comfortable bike. It handles very well around town. It tracks very straight and true. It's very easy to load up with gear. It's got plenty of space and room to do your grocery runs, bring kids with you, bring a full passenger with you. It's an adaptable bike to kind of do all of the things, but it doesn't mean that it has to be super heavy and bulky and hard to move around. So we like the Xtracycle for that, for sure. As far as handling and how it performs with a load on there, the Shimano drive unit has a lot of power. It's a very torquey drive unit that, again, is super quiet as well. It's got a really good drivetrain system on there, so pedaling with that extra weight is very easy. I made a comment in the full-length review about the gearing and doing fast top speeds. It has nothing to do with the drive unit and the bike's ability to not go fast. They made a decision intentionally for the gearing to have it favor and focus load when you have kids back there and for hilly environments. So all of the gearing is just to make the hardest places to ride this bike that much easier. So if you live in a flatter area and maybe you're not hauling 150, 120 pounds around all the time, you could change out some of your gearing to get some higher top speed. But for the rest of us, where hills do exist and carrying kids, because that's why we bought a cargo bike, is going to be happening, then the gearing is going to be super great for pedaling this bike around when we're actually using it. Again, if there's any bike that you would like to have seen us bring on test that we didn't, be sure to leave a comment down below. Let us know, and we'll do our best to try to bring that on for review in the future. There are some bikes that we didn't include this roundup that are, I guess, honorable mentions for us. There are about 4 bikes that really stood out. These are all bikes that we've tested before, so we do have reviews of those. Again, we'll link those down below. Starting off with the Aventon Abound. This is a bike that we brought on last year, did our review and included it in our sub $2,500 cargo bike roundup. It's a long-tail electric cargo bike. It's under $2,500. One of our testers is still using this bike for an extremely long-term review. Uses it often with his little one and just purely for commuting to work to save fuel and not have to drive his vehicle. The Aventon, we both agree, still offers a lot, brings a lot to the table for comfort, how smooth it is, integrations, features, app connectivity, just general ability and capability of the Abound, specifically for its price point, is very noticeable, and I think it still makes it very competitive with a lot of the bikes that we brought on test here. All the same as the Abound is the Electric Expedition. This is a very affordable, if not the best deal for an electric cargo bike that is out there. A dual battery setup for, I believe, $16.99. If there is a better deal out there, let us know in the comments. We want to know, we want to see more about that bike. But the Electric Expedition is something that we still have out on test. It is used nearly daily by our tester with his kids, whether he's shuttling to school or daycare or whatever summertime project that they were doing. It gets used a lot. It has gained a lot of miles and has become almost a additional vehicle in the family, which is how it should be used. And we think it stands out for its general abilities, what they're able to bring to the table with electric, all of their bikes for price points. But really, it lets you get into a cargo bike very affordably with a bike that is proving to be very dependable and last a long time, as well as adaptable to be able to use in a lot of different ways. Something else included in our sub $2,500 cargo bike roundup from last year is a bike that has actually seen an update that we're very thankful for. The Radwagon, there's a reason why you see it all over the place. They've done a great job with that bike over the years, and they've continued to refine it to work out their kinks. They're very responsive to people that are buying their bikes and leaving comments and reviews. They listen and make changes over the years with different generations. This current generation that was released earlier this year that we had a chance to test while we were up in Seattle, the Radwagon 5. I think this is the most refined version of the Radwagon and really saw all of the updates and upgrades that I knew we were looking for on this current version. So definitely one worth checking out for $23.99, I believe, for the Radwagon 5 now. So it's very competitive with a lot of these bikes. It might not have the final fit and finish that some of them have, but there is a reason why we see so many of the Radwagons, the electrics, the Aventons out there. Price point does say a lot. Well, thank you so much for getting this far in our cargo bike roundup. We really don't want to disappoint you guys, but we aren't choosing necessarily a specific winner or best cargo bike just yet. Maybe later this year as we get a chance to ride even more miles on more and more cargo bikes as they still are coming through for review. We're not quite going to announce that in this roundup because we genuinely think that every single one of these bikes is worth it and a great buy. It's just your interest in finding the bike that adapts and fits into your needs the best way possible. So the Benno RemiDemi XL, this to us represents what utility is. Obviously they coined the name, but a utility cargo blend, and the way that they represent that, the way that they've done that so well is with their ecosystem of accessories. I don't quite think everyone else has, zeroed in so perfectly on what all of the accessories should be for a cargo bike. And I think Benno's just done a really great job with that. So if you're looking for a very adaptable bike, kids to cargo, everything in between, I definitely think the Benno stands out for the accessory option. The Cannondale Cargowagen Neo. This to us is just the smoothest, sleekest, most comfortable cargo bike there is. It has a very high payload capacity, has a lot of power. It is just smooth and enjoyable to ride as a bike by itself, even if you don't have cargo coming along or kids cruising around with you. But it's ready, capable, and quickly set up to be a hauler as well. I think it is the best version of what a cargo bike can look like as far as looks and general package goes. You know, there's no component on there that I would want to upgrade out the door. The app connectivity with the Bosch system, ability for dual batteries. It's a very refined cargo bike that if you just want to no fuss and just get into something that's going to deliver everything you need up front, it's hard to look past the Cargowagen Neo. Well, the Globehall LT, on the other hand, I think is competitive with the Cargowagen Neo at a lower price point, and that is shown a little bit. It is heavier. The component spec isn't nearly as good, but that doesn't mean its performance isn't as good. So sometimes, you know, price points and the product or component quality might be defined as, you know, really far from each other between models. But when you actually get out and ride it and put those components to use and you know, apply some riding to them, you'll find out that they are actually a lot closer in quality than some would gather. But the Globehall LT to me is durable, it's hefty, sturdy. It's a bike that can take a lot of abuse. We've taken it camping, loaded up in the camper, back of the truck, you know, just cruising around town. We've done a lot of, you know, more aggressive things with it, and it really keeps up. It's not quite as smooth as some of the other bikes with suspension, but it is very smooth around town, and I think that extra weight, those fat tires, help keep it very planted and sturdy on the ground. And for us, myself personally, not having kids, being able to outfit it more as a passenger hauler, or bringing a dog with me, or just loading it up with a bunch of gear, maybe even put my mountain bike on the back. It's a very capable, adaptable bike, and that kind of resonates a lot with my personal needs for a cargo bike, and something that can be just kind of Play-Doh and transformed constantly, you know, week after week into whatever different type of errand that I need to use it for. The Momentum Cito E Plus, on the other hand, is without a doubt the commuter's cargo bike. This is definitely meant to be out on the roads. This is meant to be just living life, cruising in and out of traffic. It has all of those integrations and safety features that we discussed. So it's going to bring attention to you and help you be seen the best way possible. With that, a very sturdy, robust frame, very comfortable, smooth riding experience. It's got suspension up front. I enjoyed how this bike rode around town as just a bike by itself, to pulling the cargo aspect out of it as a commuter. The ability to have room for extra gear, I think, is actually likely more of what defines a commuter bike than what we're familiar with commuter bikes. We always are looking at these bikes with room for, you know, pannier racks and bags and stuff like that. So I think that the Cito E, despite not being quite as long and having as much space for two kids out back, it has room for one kid out back. You can put a full-size passenger back there as well. It really is the commuter's cargo bike. I don't know any other way to say it, but it's ready to go for day-to-day riding. And I think a lot of us, one kid max is honestly probably more than enough. Last but not least is the RFA from Xtracycle. I have the same feeling about the Xtracycle RFA as I did about the Swoop from Xtracycle. It's so smooth. I love that steel frame. Just looks alone, I'm a steel frame fan. I like the tubular design, the classic bicycle look. I think they've done a really great job. Little integration features to make this bike adapt best, I think, are kind of advanced details that maybe not everybody is interested in or willing to play with and adjust. But I think some of us, you know, lifelong cyclists that like tweaking with things, being able to adjust that rear dropout to change the rear axle position, you know, it's a little finicky of a detail, but to change your riding performance and your experience on a long-tail cargo bike based off of the cargo and the weight load that you have, again, I think it's right up that cyclist alley. So it's definitely the cyclist cargo bike in our book. something that is for people that maybe are a little adverse to electric bikes still, but are willing to get into it. I think it's a great gateway because the Shimano drive system is going to offer a very intuitive, very cyclist friendly, forward, torque sensor based electric bike experience. And you get the benefits of plenty of power and just a general great platform to get into electric bikes on. Well, I know it's a little bit of a cheat for us to not award a direct winner, but that wasn't our goal with this. This is a roundup. This is bringing a bunch of things together to showcase them all and reference some bikes that we weren't able to bring on but are still worth talking about. All of these bikes are super great. They're all bikes that we've put a lot of miles on, whether they're the honorable mentions or the bikes in this test. We have ridden them all in the daytime, in the nighttime, with kids on them, without kids on them, with dogs, dog food. We've really done a lot on cargo bikes over the last couple of years, and specifically with this mix of bikes, we did try to put them through the most use case scenarios to really see how they perform overall, and all of them did a fantastic job, and they just offer something a little bit different for each type of rider. So make a list of your wants in a cargo bike. What are you really looking for? Is it the room? Is it the power? Is it the battery range? Maybe it's a little bit of all of it. Whatever it is that you're looking for, make that list. I'm sure there's a bike out there for you. I'm sure one of these bikes will make a great fit for your life and what you're looking for. So we really thank all the brands for joining us and sending their bikes out to us for the last couple months. They all have been great to ride. We've had a great time on them. So if you have any questions or comments for us or the brands, please leave those down below. And if you haven't yet, please click subscribe. That would help us out a lot as we continue to grow the channel. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.